Welcome to the JCPS MTSS training on the Classroom Systems Toolkit with a focus on the high yield practice student-teacher relationships. I am Melissa Logston, MTSS Engagement Resource Teacher with Elementary Zone 3.
Hi, I'm April Bemker, MTSS Engagement Resource Teacher, working with the Accelerated Improvement Schools, or AIS zone, with middle and high schools.
Please take a moment to type the case-sensitive bit.ly into your web browser. This will allow you access to all the links for the activities offered throughout the presentation. Here you will see the 6 components that make up the MTSS department or multi-tiered systems of support. MTSS focuses on overall school improvement by aligning resources and support for both teachers and students. We provide multiple levels of support for learners that address academic, social, emotional, and behavioral needs, and produce professional development that is aligned with schools and the district as a whole. Let me start by showing you the components of our department, multi-tiered systems of support, known as MTSS. This concept map shows a visual of the departments within MTSS. The MTSS academic department provides teachers with Tier 2 and Tier 3 intervention and academic support. This department is headed by Donna Lawson. The MTSS behavior department, led by Sandra Hensel, supports schools in implementing school-wide behavior systems and frameworks, including PBIS and restorative practices. The MTSS re-engagement department supports students who are transitioning back to their home schools from Minor Daniels Academy and Breckenridge Metropolitan. The goal of our department, the MTSS engagement department, is to increase student achievement by equipping teachers with high-yield pedagogical practices to maximize student engagement. Both the MTSS engagement and re-engagement departments are led by Dr. Naomi Brahim. The point of contact for each department is located in the concept map. Here are the 6 MTSS toolkits. By clicking the toolkit image, you will access the MTSS department webpage and each toolkit. Classroom systems that support student behavior use academic and behavior data to put short and long-term supports in place to help students be successful. When we think about student-teacher relationships, we are referring to an aspect of classroom systems designed to help students strengthen their sense of belonging. A classroom culture where student-teacher interactions are positive makes for a successful student-teacher relationship. When thinking about student-teacher relationships, a teacher who creates a positive climate will have higher effects on student achievement. Teachers have the majority of the responsibility for the quality of relationships with students. Today, we will learn ways to create a classroom environment that promotes positive student-teacher relationships. We know we will accomplish this by implementing new strategies to develop and/or improve relationships with students to accelerate learning. Let's discuss how this high-yield practice is critical for acceleration. Research says for schools to prioritize the most effective practices that are supported by evidence. It further states to align those practices with 2 domains, social, emotional, and behavior growth, and high leverage academic instruction, which is our focus area for today. One of the practices that is critical for acceleration, based on research, is to build relationships with students, among peers, and with families through purposeful communication and to provide structured opportunities for interactions to promote connections. After years of extensive research on student learning, Dr. John Hattie found that the relationships teachers share with their students have a greater effect on their academic growth than socioeconomic status, professional development, class size, or any type of special programs. It was not that these other things were not important, but that the teacher-student relationship had more impact on students' learning outcomes. Throughout this presentation, we will be sharing research, strategies, and considerations that will help schools with this essential high leverage practice. Take a few seconds to think about ways you create positive relationships with your students. Research shows that a positive student-teacher relationship is essential for successful learning. Teachers must create an environment that is favorable for learning. It is what the teacher does, not how they feel, that dictates how the student perceives the relationship. There are higher levels of student engagement when there is a positive relationship. Positive student-teacher relationships are fostered and maintained when there is effective communication, consistent expectations that are fair and equitable, student accountability, student involvement in determining aspects of classroom management and organization, and a willingness to address issues that strain the relationship.
As you watch this video, watch for and identify different strategies used to develop student relationships.
You had so much to offer yesterday. You okay?
I'm tired.
So what's going on?
Strong relationships are central to the learning process. What the science of learning and development tells us is that we need to create learning environments which allow for strong long-term relationships for children to become attached to school and to the adults and other children in it.
When children have experiences of closeness and consistency and trust, oxytocin is released. Oxytocin has many, many positive effects on the development of the brain. So when we think about a relationship, we're not just talking about being nice to a child. We're talking about a child having an experience of attunement and trust strong enough to release the hormone oxytocin.
Good morning, Ariella. How you doing today?
The purpose of the morning greeting is to connect with them and to just make sure that I'm seeing them as humans. Like, I'm making that relationship with them, making that bond.
I prioritize relationship building because getting to know them is the best part of the job.
When I come in the morning, we usually talk about things that are happening in our community.
We're trying to build caring and respect.
The teacher is trying to understand who I am and my values as a person.
When I have a free 45 minutes or an hour, I think to myself, I could sit down and catch up on grading, or I could go and make connections, whether it's a smile or a joke or a reminder. It validates their presence in the building.
Rock it out in the art room. It starts from so much honesty and transparency with kids. It's really easy to strive to be this like idealized, always ready to go elementary school teacher, and that's not real and that's not human. When people start talking about other things while I'm still giving directions, it feels frustrating for me and I have to take a breath. My students connect most with me when they see that I also struggle and I also have challenges. It takes a lot of vulnerability on my part.
Total familiarity. When that student knows that you care about them, when they know that you're a human, let's think about that. Their academic performance in your class is going to be better.
If I'm comfortable around them, then I'm more confident around them, and it's easier to ask questions and things like that.
So when you're looking at this graph, what is it that you think happened?
Some teachers I don't always get along with the best, so then sometimes I'm like, I can't do it, so I'm just not gonna do it. But when I like the teacher, I want to do their work. I'll be like, I can learn this.
You all have done outstanding work.
Emotion and learning are completely connected. If you're in a positive emotional space, if you feel good about yourself, your teacher, that actually opens up the opportunity for more learning.
Good to see.
The video emphasized that strong relationships are integral to the learning process, and students who feel safe and supported are more likely to perform better academically. Continually working on positive relationships by making connections with your students and being vulnerable with them is essential to accelerating learning. While it is important to have fun with your students and engage in creative activities, the relationships you have with your students, along with clear, high expectations and established routines and procedures, are what's essential to student success. 3 keys to caring student-teacher relationships are having warmth for your students and accepting them for who they are, feeling empathy, understanding how your students think and feel, and taking time to be there for your students. When teachers and students have a warm and caring relationship, the students show greater levels of school adjustment, even years later, and achieve at a higher level. What are some strategies for building positive relationships that support accelerated learning? We've included 3 in the black box on this slide that can be used with both in-person or virtual instruction. One is to learn names quickly and correctly. One way to do that is to have students take turns giving a brief introduction. 1 or 2 students could go at the beginning of class and a couple more at the end of class until everyone has had a turn. With this idea, be mindful of instructional time. Use student names often to help you remember them. Another strategy is to get to know your students through student questionnaires or identity charts. Identity charts are a graphic tool that can help students consider the many factors that shape who we are as individuals and as communities. You can click on the underlined words on the slide for links to more information about interest questionnaires or identity charts. Lastly, be sure to say hello and goodbye to your students every day. If in person, be at the door at the beginning and end of class to do this individually. Another strategy to build stronger relationships with your students is to post student pictures and work. Some tips to consider: remember to remove identifying information, grades, and feedback on posted work. Create displays that honor effort and not just perfectly mastered work, and make sure it has a meaningful connection to the curriculum. Include everyone in the class when posting, while also giving students a say in what is posted. Some may not want their work posted. And keep displays current and at the student's eye level. Also included on this slide are some ideas on how to display student work both in the classroom or digitally. One idea, sending a weekly email or newsletter, is a very powerful tool to foster stronger relationships with not only elementary age students, but middle and high school students as well. There are links at the bottom of the slide with more ideas. Finding small ways to connect with students often and let them have a voice is another relationship building strategy. With this strategy, be mindful of use of instructional time and strive to connect to students while connecting to learning. There are links included on this slide to contracting and discussion planning tools to help with open discussions about class expectations and how students will treat each other. It is important to be proactive in setting expectations to protect everyone's right to speak and to allow differing perspectives to be heard and valued. A few ideas to help connect with students include hosting office hours, lunch bunch, where students could periodically be invited to eat lunch with you, and allowing for read aloud, think aloud, talk aloud times connected to learning, as well as reflection activities. It is important to utilize the descriptors from the Affirming Racial Equity tool, or AR tool, when connecting with students. This slide highlights the descriptors from the Empowering Classroom Culture and Equitable Pedagogy components of the AR tool that relate most closely to building positive student-teacher relationships. You should create a community of learners by encouraging students to focus on collective work, responsibility, and cooperation, and hold all students to high academic expectations by providing the same rigorous content modified through scaffolds. It is important for us as teachers to affirm race as part of building relationships and to create classrooms that are welcoming, positive, and supportive for minoritized groups. This list includes what to do to have effective connection with your students and what to avoid. A few things listed include accepting every student, treating students with respect, being a great listener, showing compassion and being warm and welcoming. To name a few that you should try to avoid include avoid having vague expectations and vague boundaries, avoid using sarcasm, and avoid demanding respect. Some additional strategies to help build better student relationships that accelerate learning are listed here. Have high expectations for all of your students. Show them that you'll never give up on them and that you'll advocate for them. Celebrate your students and reach out to families by calling or sending a postcard or letter to share something positive and highlight students.
In any classroom, the teacher should be aware of certain considerations regarding the environment or learning community that they are helping to create. Knowing the background or cultural norms for students within the classroom will lead to more engaging and effective instructional practice. This culturally responsive approach should be utilized to reach as many students as possible in the classroom and foster positive student-teacher relationships to accelerate learning. Be sure to make all students feel welcomed and appreciated and be responsive to their cultural identity. Establish and maintain positive relationships with your students through an equity lens to help remove any barriers for learning. In classrooms where ECE students are present, use of strategies to develop strong, positive relationships with your students should be utilized more often based upon the needs of the learners there. As supported by research we mentioned earlier in this presentation, more positive student-teacher relationships are associated with higher levels of student engagement and short and long-term impacting a variety of factors, including attendance, academic grades, and fewer disruptive behaviors. Increased use of the strategies presented earlier will facilitate accelerating learning for all students, including ECE and ELO. By working to develop strong relationships with your students, you create a collaborative classroom climate where students feel empowered to be more independent and take a more active role in their learning process, which are all key when considering project-based learning, or PBL. These positive relationships facilitate the occurrence of deeper learning, which will be essential to accelerate learning. We will leave you with two quotes to reflect on. Teddy Roosevelt said, "People won't care how much you know until they know how much you care." Maya Angelou said, "People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." Here's the list of resources that were used throughout this presentation. Thank you for joining us to learn more about student-teacher relationships. For more information about the NTSS toolkits and other high-yield practices, please visit our website.